Boy, it's exciting to start hour 12. At the end of this hour, we'll reach the halfway mark. And the 12th reason for hope is that public opinion really is changing here in the U.S. and all over the world. And you remember Bob Dylan saying, "You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows"? Well, that applies to the climate crisis. The reality of what is happening is clearer than ever before. Any arguments that the deniers try to gin up with climate science, it's almost irrelevant now because people feel it at a visceral level. From stronger storms to bigger floods and mudslides, deeper droughts and spreading fires, hotter temperatures, melting ice, rising seas, the spread of tropical diseases. People are feeling the effects of the climate crisis in their lives and in their livelihoods. The nightly newscasts now, almost every night, is like a nature hike through the book of Revelation. It really is quite astounding. And as a result, more than ever before, people now are demanding action from their leaders. But there are really two reasons for this shift in public opinion. One is the reason that I mentioned. Mother Nature is speaking up. And Mother Nature's voice is awfully powerful. Tragically, there have been 100 times more climate-related extreme weather events than just 30 years ago. My hometown of Nashville, Tennessee, just 3 years ago, had what they called a 1,000-year rainfall. And thousands of my neighbors lost their homes and businesses and didn't have any insurance against flood because it had never flooded in those regions before. We're seeing places where 2 feet of rain will fall in one day. These 500-year or 1,000-year events are occurring far more frequently than that. Look at the state of California right now, 100% of the state in drought. A huge percentage of it in extreme drought, the worst category. Fires spreading throughout the American West. In this city, Superstorm Sandy hit. But my point is not to go through that list, but rather to refer to it as a reason why people really are looking at their hold cards, so to speak, and saying, wait a minute, something is happening here that's very different from anything that has happened before. Right now, as this event is taking place in both northern India and Pakistan and the region of Kashmir, there has been unprecedented flooding. And the environmentalists and the scientists there are telling journalists from around the world this is connected to global warming, other causes as well. But these kinds of events really are having a profound impact on the way people think about climate change. But that's just the first of the two reasons. The second reason for this growing shift in opinion has to do with many of the reasons of hope that we're talking about during this 24 hours of reality event. Because once you decide it's real and we've got to do something about it, the next question is, can we do something about it? If the answer to that is in doubt, if people think, oh my goodness, there may not be solutions, then that produces paralysis and inertia and inaction. And the climate denialists and the carbon polluters take advantage of that and sow the seeds of false doubt, and they have an easier time than they should of just producing that political paralysis and inaction that they really want. But that second question, can we solve this crisis, is now beginning to be answered differently. Because of the great advances in solar electricity and wind energy and battery storage and the new grid technologies and energy efficiency technologies and electric vehicles and the other reasons for hope we've been talking about here, now people have the opportunity to loudly, boldly, and sincerely answer the question, can we solve this, with a yes, we can solve it and we will solve it. And I believe that there is yet another reason for this shift in opinion. I believe that people are seeing this as a moral issue, and I think that the actions of faith leaders and religious denominations across the board that we talked about 2 hours ago is extremely important in empowering people to define this really as a spiritual crisis. It is an outward manifestation of the inner spiritual crisis. What are our values? Do we place any value on the future in which our children and grandchildren will live? And of course, now that these extreme events are taking place now, we don't even have to go into the next generation and beyond. It's happening to those of us alive right now. But whatever the reasons, there's no doubt that the 12th reason for hope is that the tide of public opinion is definitely changing. Look at this map of the United States that illustrates, sorry about that, the percentage of Americans who believe global warming is real, and the vast majority of these also say it's caused predominantly by human beings, between 75 and 88%. Really quite an impressive lineup, even in these so-called red states. In Oklahoma, 85 to 88%. In Texas, 82 to 84%, and so on. So this is really a significant change in public opinion. Also, 61% of Americans, a huge majority, say that the President and the Congress should place a high priority on the development of clean, renewable energy. So why aren't we doing it? Well, we are seeing some political consequences of this shift in public opinion when we look at state governments and local governments, and we're seeing this in other countries, of course, in an even more powerful way. There has been an effort by some of the large carbon polluters to induce state governments and state legislatures to put a tax on solar panels. And Republicans as well as Democrats are saying, what? That doesn't make sense to us. Because the great majority say that we ought to be putting a high priority on clean energy, doesn't make sense to go along with the polluters' agenda. We are at a turning point, and that in itself is a reason for hope, and it's because of the shift in public opinion. If you look at the opinions expressed by registered voters, they are 2.5 times more likely to vote for a candidate who supports action to solve the climate crisis, all other things being equal. And that is a powerful political reality that is beginning to have a real impact in the political system. When you ask Americans what they would like to see their electric utilities do, 81% say they want them to use more renewables. Interestingly, some of these polls get a big majority of Americans to answer that question, even if they add language that says, would you want them to do it even if it raised your electricity bill? And they still say yes. Of course, it doesn't raise their electricity bills, and in many cases it lowers them, and as solar and wind continue to get cheaper, it will lower them even more in the future. But this is a great new development. 65% of voters under the age of 35 understand clearly that taking action on climate is going to create jobs. And why wouldn't they understand it? They see these jobs emerging. There are more solar jobs than coal jobs in America today. And the renewable sustainability sector of the economy is the fastest growing part of the economy. It's creating jobs at a faster rate than any other part of the economy. And here's a very interesting finding, and this is replicated in a lot of different public opinion polls. You can talk to Democratic voters and Republican voters, and you'll see some difference. When you talk to young Republican voters under the age of 35, what an interesting finding this is. A majority of young Republican voters say they're less likely to vote for anybody opposed to action to solve the climate crisis. as these voters get older and as more young voters come of age, this is an unstoppable trend. And this artificial and debilitating extreme partisanship that now affects public opinion in the United States is going to dissipate. We can already see the beginnings of this. And of course, the public opinion expressed in the form of activism is particularly important. Some people have the mistaken idea. I say it's mistaken, and I'm really not saying it on my own authority. I don't have it. But I say it because social scientists have done a lot of work in this area. They ask, how does the opinion of an entire political group change? And some people have the misunderstanding, according to these social scientists, that you got to change 51% of the minds. Not so. If you have 10% or even a little more who have a different view and are passionate about it, and who become activists, and who are unrelenting in their advocacy of this point of view, that often leads to dramatic change in the opinion of the group as a whole. So these activists around the world, here in Australia, are really making a big difference. And by the way, there's going to be a huge gathering of people deeply concerned about the climate crisis and very anxious to solve it and reap the benefits of solving it, who are going to be gathered in New York City, in this city, come Sunday. And so if you feel strongly about the climate crisis, if you want to solve the climate crisis, if your opinion is that politicians need to listen and stop doing what the polluters want, come to New York City on Sunday. Join the climate march. It's going to be quite an historic gathering. The demonstrations on the White House, I started to say White House lawn, outside the White House lawn, had a huge impact on President Obama's approach to the Keystone XL pipeline and the tar sands. Now, finally, Climate Reality has a number of active programs. One of our programs is the People versus Carbon. Go to this website, People versus Carbon, and add your comments and opinions on the EPA's new power plant rule, the social cost of carbon rule, and the existing power plant rule. We've gathered a huge number of comments. They make a difference when these comments are reviewed and when the regulations are reviewed. The shift in public opinion is the 12th reason for hope.